We are here with NC Courage head coach Sean Nahas following the team's loss in Houston. Sean, if we could just start with an opening statement from you.
Yeah, there's not much to say. We weren't good enough on the day and have to start looking at ourselves a little bit and see how we flip this script on the road.
And then KK broke a major league record in the first half of this game, setting the record for consecutive minutes played in the regular season. What does it say about her game that for her to be able to maintain that level and that level of fitness to be able to do that over so many years?
It's a mentality. I mean, she has the mentality to compete at this level, and that's why she's seeing the fruits of her labor. And I wish we had 26 players with that mentality. It's difficult in this league to go that long and that many minutes consecutively, the grind. But yeah, I mean, she takes care of herself, and the kid cares, and yeah, it doesn't surprise me that she's getting these recognitions.
And then been a stretch of a lot of games over the last few weeks. You guys are heading into the international break. Is it going to be good to get some rest on some player legs over the next week?
Yeah.
And then I'll turn it over to questions. Does anyone have questions in the Zoom? Vic?
Yeah, thank you. Sean, you got some young players that got some playing time tonight. Riley Jackson came in, Landy Mertz came in. I think those were her first minutes this season. They come in kind of difficult circumstances. What were your impressions on their minutes tonight?
I mean, Riley's played all year. So, I mean, she's come off the bench every game. Landy, obviously, it's not the type of game you want to put a player in for their first minutes, but kid works her tail off and trains her tail off. And, and sometimes at some point you have to reward players that, regardless of the situation, and she deserved those minutes. And yeah, I mean, hopefully she continues on the path that she's doing and gets more minutes. But yeah, I mean, Riley's played every game, so.
Right. There were recent reports that the Courage were trying to sign Nikita Paris, and that didn't go through for reasons. What kind of qualities are you looking for to fill that kind of a role?
I mean, I'm not gonna talk. We have players on our roster. I'm not gonna talk about players that aren't on our roster. So, the Nicole Nikita thing, it's not happening. So I'm not gonna discuss that. But right now, the players on our roster have to emerge in that role and find ways to put themselves in scoring positions in areas. And yeah, right now we're doing it and we're not doing it. We're definitely more consistent at home, I can tell you that. And whatever the mental block is on the road, that's something that we have to figure out internally and in the locker room, in the coach's locker room. But tonight just wasn't good enough. We as a whole, we need to be better. And sometimes, like I said, you have to experience these things. But really, three bad goals given up. I mean, let's be honest. Just goals that we shouldn't be conceding. And if you go back and look how they happen, it's just a willingness to want to compete a little bit.
Last question for me. What is something that you want fans, media, what do you want people to know about this team?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, you can't be fickle about who you support. You can't support when you win and not support when you lose. You can't be happy when you win and pissed off at everybody when you lose. In terms of, for whatever reason, they're players that are going out and competing every single day and train their tails off every single day and represent the club in the right way and professional way. And I think that's what you want to support. If you're supporting for wins and losses, then you're not supporting. You're like a fan in the wind, right? So I think at the end of the day, too often, and I think in this at this stage and at this level, there's always finger pointing and there's always these things, but the players, they're not robots, and they're going to have good days and they're going to have bad days. They have more good than bad. And as fans, or I don't like to use the word fans, but as supporters, the number one thing is doing just that. It's supporting them through it all. And If people think that you're going to go undefeated every season, that's impossible. If people think you're going to win every game, it's impossible. If people think that because people are to blame because of winning or losing, that's not it. You know, at the end of the day, we're in this together, and as supporters, you should feel the same way. Unfortunately, in this country, if you don't win, no one cares. Whereas overseas, if you look at third division teams and fourth division teams, they're selling out their stadiums because fans support them to help lift them up. And I think that's the part that we have to continue to grow with. But you know, it's just it's a normal American culture, right? I mean, everyone's about winning. It's about being in honors classes. It's about getting full scholarships. It's about what school you going to compared to another person. It's about, oh, where are you like it's all the wrong stuff. And I can tell you our players, they work every day, they don't complain, they put the effort in, and that alone should make people want to support them, not whether or not they win or lose a game.
Trevor, Katie, anything from either of you?
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that because to me the effort feels very apparent that's coming from this squad, and there are some really, really, really great chances being created. And I guess I'm just curious from your perspective how everyone's thinking about approaching that cultural aspect. I mean, I think you called it a mental block in terms of just showing up next time and ready and having that kind of keeping your head up, keeping everybody in the game. Because with so many road losses, I think sometimes it is really easy to kind of fall into the trap of like, oh, here we have another one. What are we going to do? Rather than just being loose and relaxed. And I'm just kind of curious about how the mix of like culture setting coming from you and then coming from others in the locker room and kind of how that balance works.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about it at all this week. You know, I think they all know the situation. We're not the only team that hasn't won on the road. There's other teams that haven't won on the road. So look, it's not easy. Winning in this league, period, is not easy. But you know, I think right now when we're home, we have a belief about ourselves that we're going to win. Whereas on the road, we're waiting for something bad to happen instead of going and making something positive happen. And that happens at the highest of levels. It happens here, it happens everywhere, every sport. And it takes that one moment just to sort of get by it and put it all behind you. And right now we're not doing that for whatever reason. You know, nothing in training showed me or them like they had a really good week of training. They had a really good performance. They were excited about the performance last week. For whatever reason, this week was not a good performance, and that's okay. They're allowed to have that. And if there was a way to put a finger on exactly what it is, I think we would have done that already. It's just, you know, people say, oh, maybe change the way you play, but you need the players to be able to change that, meaning you can't go direct, right? We don't have the maybe the pace that maybe other teams have that the ability to play direct, right? So that changes it. And then our lines are stretched. Has nothing to do with how we play. Because if we were winning, they wouldn't say that, right? So I think it's more of that. It's just finding ways or not finding ways to lose because we're not finding that way. We're just waiting for something bad to happen. And then when you're waiting for that to happen and it actually happens, it's like you're digging yourself back up above ground. And that's really difficult when you're on the road because we all see what the situation is, right?
That was my only question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else on Zoom? All right, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Sean. Recording will be out shortly.
Thanks, Nick.